The next episode in the never-ending soap opera that is the Safety of Rwanda bill is coming to a House of Lords near you on Wednesday. Yep, tomorrow peers will have another swipe at the legislation that they sought to shackle with 10 amendments last week and that MPs voted down late last night. Hard to believe, isn't it, that we're still talking about Rwanda and yet nothing is going on. If you could collectively just add up all the words that have been spoken about it and maybe get £1 for every one of them, maybe the government would actually not be in deficit anymore. My panel are here with me tonight, Deputy Political Editor of The Sun, Ryan Saby, journalist and broadcaster Emma Wolfe, and political analyst Mike Indian. Very good evening to all of you. I mean, we were told last night, early doors, that all 10 House of Lords amendments would be knocked down. They were all knocked down. Seemed to be a colossal waste of time. Some people seem to think it was a good idea that the House of Lords had a look. Now they're going to have another look, and Labour peers now are saying that they're going to block it. So, you know, how much more of this are we supposed to take, Ryan?
It could go on and it could be all done and dusted tomorrow. I doubt it will be. The likelihood is we'll have, as the well-known phrase, ping pong going between the Commons and the House of Lords.
More like whiff-waff.
It is a little bit. As it literally travels that
wibble ball.
Exactly. That piece of legislation goes from the Commons to the Lords. It's about 50 yards, and there's that great ceremony that goes in between. What I think what will happen tomorrow is you'll have the Lords voting and probably accepting 6 or 7 amendments.
Yeah.
The reason is that it will be up to the Tory peers. They have to get enough people in to vote it down.
Yeah.
They've called these people up from all around the world. You know, you are a Tory peer. You need to be here on this day. They may not get enough.
Yeah. There's not enough of them, is there?
There is just about if they all turn up. However, some have got on business, some are ill. You've got to call them all in. So I think you'll have 6 or 7 will go through. And one of the reasons it may go through is there won't be enough sort of one nation Tories ready to give in just yet. Right. So I think when they do, the bill will go through and it'll be a problem.
Because there's plenty of Tories that still don't think the Rwanda bill is a good bill, and there's plenty of Tories who will rebel, I presume, in the House of Lords. But everyone keeps telling me that this is just like 1979. You know, I remember 1979. I mean, you guys might not because you don't look old enough. But, you know, 1979, when we'd had such terrible, terrible times with the Labour government and such awful times with, you know, rubbish piling up and, you know, all sorts of strikes everywhere. You couldn't bury your dead and all of that, you know. But we keep getting references to it. And I remember the last time they had House of Lords in this situation where they were sort of shipping Lords in from hospitals and, you know, bringing people in on stretchers.
Getting them out of the morgues.
Yeah, exactly right. So, I mean, are we going back to the 70s? I mean, it was a pretty bad time.
I don't know if we're going back to the 70s, but this whole deportation, this farce just has to stop. This is weird that Rishi Sunak, every time he mentions Rwanda, we're just reminded of how utterly incompetent the Home Office has been under 14 years of his you know, party's rule. We've also found out this week that Rwanda are not even ready for this, right? They've only got 150 beds in the Hope Hostel. So the idea that they could make any dent in our backlog of hundreds of thousands of migrants, I mean, the whole policy is a joke, and yet Rishi Sunak has chosen this as the hill on which he's going to die. He's obsessed with this. He's completely fixated on it. Rwanda is a byword. Well, it's a joke. It's a byword for failure.
Even people who might politically be on his side might say that he's obsessed with Rwanda and obsessed with a tiny, tiny problem of our entire immigration system. As Emma says, you know,
the utility of the policy is not worth the outcome. And, you know, in answer to your question about the return to the 70s, the Callaghan government didn't have a working majority at that point. They lost the vote of confidence in 1979 by 1 vote, famously. Rishi Sunak has a comfortable working majority. He proved that on Monday night, despite the recent by-election losses. He still has a working majority of 50-odd seats in the House.
He started with 80.
But he doesn't behave like a Prime Minister who's in control. We've had at least 2 of his prominent rivals in Cabinet having to go out and publicly say in the press they are not out to try and oust him before the election. Penny Mordaunt, Kemi Badenoch. So Rishi Sunak doesn't behave like a man who has a working majority, but it feels like the last days of the John Major government. Feels a bit febrile, and this is why he's so desperate to get Rwanda through, because he's put so much credibility on it.
Would it not then be equally ridiculous, though, if he did? Because it wouldn't make any difference to his likelihood of winning at the polls.
It's going to make zero difference. It's not going to shift him in the polls. No one out there is saying, oh, well, if one flight takes off in May, or maybe June now. And also, Mike, on a more serious note, I think there should be a public inquiry about this. I know we talk about a lot of government wastage and things. Apparently, the cost is up to like 370 million. I think it is disgusting and scandalous, and I don't have the words for how awful it is that we have wasted this much money on possibly deporting 150 people, possibly a few more hundred, whatever it ends up being. The cost will have been absolutely ludicrous.
Yes, and like a lot of these scandals, an awful lot of people are getting very wealthy as a result. not least quite a few Tory donors,
Government
not
lawyers.
least the people that run Serco, not least government contractors, not least, the people traffickers. I mean, everyone's getting rich on this business, apart from us.
Yeah, there's the people who run like Bibby Stockholm, or they've got the contracts, or they've got, they're building the accommodation in these large camps, wherever they are. They're turning these RF bases around. So people are making. I think the government, what they're trying to do, there's big numbers, 370 odd million they've spent so far. It is a huge amount.
Yeah.
However, they think if this Rwanda policy acts as a deterrent, it will bring down the overall bill of the hotels.
Yeah, but it won't, though, will it?
And it's not acting as a deterrent because they're not idiots. People traffickers can see that we're in utter disarray over this. I mean, it's just...
only last week we were saying that they were going to offer them $3,000 to go to Rwanda voluntarily. Which is actually an intrinsic kind of invitation to come here, isn't it? It's not like come here and you'll be threatened with being sent to Rwanda. It's like come here and we'll send you there and pay you $3,000 to do.
And at the same time, as we send over, maybe 30 will go, we also have to take people back from Rwanda.
Right. The whole business of immigration.
Money.
But let me ask you, Mike, the whole business of immigration is knackered in this country. What are Labour going to do? We've got Rachel Reeves speaking tonight about how she's going to turn herself into Margaret Thatcher and presumably just upset lots of people in the Labour Party by saying that.
Momentum,
but basically, we know that she's not Margaret Thatcher. We know that she's not necessarily going to do anything to change pretty much what is government policy and Treasury policy right now. But what would they do on immigration?
If I was Yvette Cooper, day one, it's having a real commission into the whole immigration system, not just looking at what happened with Rwanda. The whole point is we need a root and branch review of the whole thing. It's not just looking at asylum policy and things. It's not just looking at immigration. It's looking at the whole round and how it operates.
And dismantling the Home Office and starting again.
Well, it doesn't take long to do an investigation into how useless the Home Office is. It's just useless.
Yes, but we need to look at how it's operating, what the outcomes are. Are we getting the people in for the professions that we need? How do we transition to more domestic?
But that would just take ages, wouldn't it? That would just be months and months.
If we get it right, though,
years.
we meant to have sorted this with Brexit. We didn't. Let's try and get it right now. If immigration's at a record high, we want to bring it down. We have to look at what the system is doing, what the outputs are, and where the points of pressure are.
It doesn't matter what Rachel Reeves said in her stupid Mays speech tonight.
We'll hear a bit of it later on, just so
good.
Happy about that.
The Mays speech that I've never heard of. Because they can't lose. I mean, literally, she could stand up.
Listen, if Keir Starmer's still in charge, they can lose. Trust me.
Yeah, they can lose.
He is not a shoo-in.
The Conservatives and Reform together would have to pull an
Labour winning is not Labour winning elections is very much a novelty.
I mean, I don't think anyone's going to vote. I don't think anyone's going to vote for anyone. But I think that Labour are pretty much a shoo-in for the next election.
I mean, you know about cephology, Ryan. I mean, at what point would this be the lowest turnout in a general election? I mean, I don't know whether there have been historically very low turnouts.
I'm trying to think what it would be now. I think if it got down to sort of into the 50s or early 60s.
I just wonder if that might be the thing that saved
a low point.
It was 55% in 2001 when Blair was pretty much a shoo-in.
No, but it won't save the Tories because Tories aren't going to vote, whereas at least Labour people are going to turn out and vote.
No, but will it save them from being wiped out, is I suppose what I'm saying.
Possibly, but you look at their core vote. That core vote for the Conservative Party was always around 30%. You're now going down to sort of mid-20s.
Yeah.
I mean, are they going to get enough people out to actually save... they could be left with a real rump of about, 100, 150 seats. We had that poll out the other day in the Mail on Sunday saying Labour could get a majority of 250 seats.
Yep.
This is far beyond what Rishi Sunak can save. The only hope is that by shining a light on Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves during the election campaign, that you pull some of it back. But we're talking maybe a few dozen seats here or there.
Yeah, well, let's see. I don't know if we could get a flavour of what Rachel Reeves said tonight. We'll have a look at it in a moment. But, I mean, the thing that I think will happen if the Labour Party win a massive majority is that they will all start getting sort of power crazed and the whole party will suddenly start rowing as the Tories have been rowing. Because if you look at how many factions there are inside Labour right now, they can't even agree on what to do about Gaza. David Lammy was up again today shouting and screaming about a humanitarian ceasefire, not bothering to mention that Hamas keeps nicking all the aid that goes in, but there's plenty of people who don't think he's going far enough. Let's have a look at Rachel Reeves and see if we can be inspired by anything she said.
I suggest that the answer today is an economic approach which recognises how our world has changed. Building growth on strong and secure foundations, with active government, guided by 3 imperatives. First, guaranteeing stability. Second, stimulating investment through partnership with business. And third, reform, to unlock the contribution of working people and the untapped potential throughout our economy.
as George Galloway would say, I hope you didn't rehearse that speech. I mean, is that the best of it, you know?
I think they're
partnership with business for investment.
Wow.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
I think they're just going to have to put some more flesh on the bone when it comes to that election. I think what the thing is about this speech is a very sort of broad brush approach. It's not looking at the detail. There's no real there's nothing on sort of tax and spend in terms of the detail. That's because they're trying to hold back, and you know they are trying to work on growth, but it's how you actually get there.
Yeah.
It's all very well the Conservatives and Labour talking about productivity, growth, these key phrases, but actually having a roadmap to actually getting there.
But
is
this
very
is what
difficult.
I mean. If they get in with a big majority, you know, there will be people knocking on the door of her Chancellor's office going, this is what we need money for, this is what we need money
But
for.
conversely, a big majority means they could ignore the lunatics inside the party. It's a smaller majority you actually had to worry more about, because the Socialist Campaign Group makes up roughly 40 of the Labour MPs at the moment, about a fifth of the parliamentary party. And if you have a majority in, say, it's 40 seats or less, suddenly they have a lot more influence over whether Labour's budgets get through, its speeches get through.
Right.
So actually a bigger majority could actually put them in more of a secure position.
Also, let's not forget, since Rochdale, we haven't really talked that much about the effect that similar sort of campaigns to George Galloway's could have in those particular constituencies where there happens to be a big Muslim majority of people.
Yeah, there's that. And also, I think you'll have, like, the Green Party in particular could take a lot of votes from Labour. They will be campaigning in particularly sort of student areas, those metropolitan areas, and saying, look at Labour, they didn't, go through with their £28 billion green jobs plan. We'll have some of your votes.
And also the Gaza thing is
like
a big number as well, as it is in America with Joe Biden. You know, Joe Biden is getting hammered by the young university students who would normally vote Democrat and who would normally vote for him because they're in their 20s, because they don't like his attitude on Gaza. They don't like US policy on Gaza. And that could still be an issue here.
Yeah, but I still think it's probably only going to cost you a few seats here or there. Again, with the Green thing, it's probably only going to cost you that much. I think if they can go for the centre ground, and this is what they're doing, they're tending to match the Conservatives on spending and their sort of fiscal rules. And I think if they do that, a lot of the country will think, well...
And that was what Reeves did say tonight. She committed to having debt falling at the end of the Parliament, which is a huge constraint on public spending. So big strokes, we're not going to see a spending push as she's in the Treasury, which for Labour generates a bigger thing. She either has to get the economy growing and keep public spending as it is. With the NHS welfare, everything is social care at breaking point. That's a huge challenge for a party that's traditionally been the party of public services in this country.
Well, that's the problem. For everything that everyone says about, the NHS and the lack of funding for public services and local councils, the government has never been bigger. I can't remember a bigger government in my entire career, and in fact, my life. Yeah,
then you've got the unions. Unite came out tonight and said the plan, you need to sort of take off the shackles when it comes to spending and reform. Saying some of the policies in the speech or some of the ideas are for the birds. So you've got the unions who will be knocking on the door asking for more money.
And so far, the only real magic money tree has been the non-dom thing, hasn't it? Isn't that the only...
which the Conservatives,
that a few times
which the Conservatives have taken away. And also you've got the VAT on private school fees. Which is only going to raise 1.7, maybe £2 billion. So it's not massive.
That won't keep you in illegal migrants for more than about, a couple of months?
10 minutes, I'd have thought.
Exactly right. And also, they're actually attacking something that many people who might vote Labour as a sort of Blairite Labour would be sending their kids to those schools.
And look, that private schools thing is a red herring, because it could end up costing them a lot more when, everybody then migrates to the state school system and puts massive pressure on the state school system. So.
And plenty of educationalists will say it also, in a way, undermines the plan to get everybody into a decent school, because what you'll get is the people who can't now afford to put their kids into private school, putting their kids into decent secondary schools, and the poorer kids won't have the chance.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, it's
not very Labour
to play for, not very Labour at all. Mind you, that's how they have to be to get in, isn't it?
Of course, they're doing a Tony Blair and tacking to the centre.
Yeah. It makes you harken back to the good old days of Tony Blair, a man with principles compared to what they've got now.
But also on the schools, you've got the catchment areas. So if these people, who can afford school fees, you can say, well, actually, I can save a hell of a lot of money. We'll buy a nice house in the catchment area and then push people who are,
But that's exactly what happened.
I feel like you're looking at me.
Yeah, that's exactly what will happen. But anyway, listen, guys, good start. We'll get you back to talk about a great many other things, of course. You're watching The Independent Republic of Mike Graham.